Waitress reveals the secret of the millionaire's girlfriend, and he almost faints. Arthur Sterling felt that he had finally found the woman of his dreams. At 52, the successful businessman in the construction industry believed Vanessa would be the ideal companion to share the rest of his life. It was during a romantic dinner at the most elegant restaurant in New York City that everything changed. Arthur had chosen that special place to propose to Vanessa, the diamond ring already tucked in his jacket pocket. She was radiant in that red dress that highlighted her brown hair, pinned up in a sophisticated updo. "Everything is perfect, darling," said Vanessa, admiring the candles and flowers Arthur had specially requested for that night. "You deserve the best," he replied, holding her hand over the table. The two were chatting animatedly when the waitress approached to serve the wine. She was a woman in her 40s, with a professional smile and graceful movements that showed years of experience in that refined setting. "Good evening, I'm Brenda, and I'll be taking care of you tonight," she said, pouring the Italian red wine Arthur had ordered. But when Brenda lifted her eyes and saw Vanessa clearly in the candlelight, her face changed completely. The bottle trembled slightly in her hands, and she had to concentrate to keep from spilling the liquid. "Excuse me," murmured Brenda, quickly stepping back toward the counter. Arthur noticed the waitress's strange reaction, but Vanessa was already commenting on the restaurant's atmosphere, drawing his attention away. They ordered the main courses and continued their romantic conversation, Arthur waiting for the right moment to propose. About 20 minutes later, Brenda returned with the appetizers. Her hands were still trembling slightly, but she maintained her professional composure. As she leaned over to set the plate in front of Vanessa, Arthur heard an almost imperceptible whisper. "Sir, I need to speak with you. It's about her." Arthur looked at Brenda, confused, and she quickly moved away again. Vanessa was distracted, scrolling through her phone, and didn't seem to have heard anything. "Did something happen?" asked Vanessa, noticing Arthur's thoughtful expression. "Nothing, darling. I just thought the waitress was a little strange." Later, when Vanessa went to the restroom to touch up her makeup, Brenda quickly approached Arthur's table. "Sir, I know this may sound crazy, but I need to tell you something very important about the woman who's with you." Arthur stared at her, intrigued and slightly irritated. "Look, I don't know what you're thinking, but—" interrupted Brenda, looking around to make sure Vanessa hadn't returned. "I know this woman. I worked with her a few years ago." "You two worked together? Where?" "At St. Jude's nursing home right here in New York City. She used a different name back then." Arthur felt a knot in his stomach. Vanessa had always said she came from a traditional family in Virginia and had never worked a day in her life, living off her parents' inheritance. "You must be mistaken," he said, but his voice came out less convincing than he intended. "Sir, she went by Monica back then. Monica Miller, and she was fired for very serious reasons. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. Brenda saw Vanessa coming out of the restroom and quickly walked away, leaving Arthur with 1,000 questions in his head. When his girlfriend returned to the table, he looked at her with different eyes, searching for signs that Brenda might be telling the truth. "Are you okay, dear?" "You look pale," commented Vanessa, gently touching his face. "I'm fine, just a little tired." The dinner went on, but Arthur could barely focus on the conversation. Every word Vanessa said now sounded different to him. He had known that woman for 8 months, ever since they met at a charity event hosted by his company. She had introduced herself as Vanessa Kensington, the daughter of farmers from Virginia who had passed away in an accident years ago. "Arthur, you're not eating anything," Vanessa observed. "Are you sure you're okay?" "Sorry, love, just thinking about work." Lying had never come easily to Arthur, and he could tell Vanessa noticed his unease. He decided he needed to find out the truth about what Brenda had hinted at. "Vanessa, you never told me much about your life before we met." She let out a soft laugh, playing with the pearl necklace Arthur had given her the month before. "I've told you everything, love. There's not much to say. I lost my parents young, lived off their inheritance, and now here I am with you. But what about work? Didn't you ever want to do something? Never needed to, thank God. My parents left me well taken care of. The answer came too quickly, almost automatic. Arthur began noticing details that had gone unnoticed before. Vanessa's hands were soft, but there were small marks and calluses that didn't match a life of leisure. When Brenda brought dessert, she discreetly dropped a piece of paper beside Arthur's plate. Vanessa was on her phone again and didn't notice the movement. Arthur waited a moment and, pretending to wipe his mouth with his napkin, picked up the paper. It was a phone number with a message. "If you want to know the truth, find me. Brenda." The rest of dinner was a test of endurance. Arthur kept the conversation light while his mind churned with doubt. He had planned to propose to Vanessa that night, but now the diamond ring weighed in his pocket like a stone of guilt. "I think it's getting late," Vanessa said, checking her watch. "How about we head home?" Arthur paid the bill, leaving a generous tip for Brenda, who gave him a meaningful look as she received the money. On the way to Vanessa's apartment, she was especially affectionate, kissing his neck and whispering sweet words. But for the first time since they'd met, Arthur felt uncomfortable with those displays of affection. "Are you sure you're okay?" she asked as he parked the car. "Just tired, that's all. I'll talk to you more tomorrow." Vanessa seemed to accept the explanation, but Arthur noticed a flicker of concern in her eyes before she said goodbye with a kiss. At home, Arthur couldn't sleep. He paced around the living room of his apartment, staring at the city skyline through the window. His life had changed completely since he met Vanessa. She had filled a void he didn't even know existed. Arthur had always been discreet about his wealth, the result of years building a construction company that was now one of the most respected in New York City. At 52, he had never married, devoting himself entirely to business after losing his parents. Vanessa had come into his life like a gift from fate. Intelligent, elegant, affectionate, she seemed genuinely interested in him as a person, not just his money. At least, that's what Arthur believed, until that night. The next morning, he couldn't concentrate at work. His assistant, Sarah, noticed his distraction during the meeting with the engineers. "Mr. Sterling, would you like to reschedule the afternoon meeting?" she asked, after the others had left the room. "No, Sarah, I just have some personal matters on my mind. If you need anything, I'll be here." Arthur thanked her and was left alone in his office. The morning passed slowly, with him constantly checking his phone, hoping for some message from Vanessa. She used to send affectionate texts throughout the day, but that morning she remained silent. During lunch, Arthur made a decision. He picked up the paper Brenda had left on the table and dialed the number. "Hello?" The waitress's voice sounded hesitant. "Is this Brenda? It's Arthur from the restaurant last night." "Mr. Arthur, I was hoping you'd call. Can we meet?" "Are you sure about what you're saying about Vanessa?" "I'm absolutely sure, and there are things much worse than what I could tell you last night." They agreed to meet at a discreet coffee shop downtown. Arthur arrived first and chose a table in the back of the establishment. A few minutes later, Brenda appeared, still in her waitress uniform since she had come straight from work. "Thank you for coming," she said, sitting across from him. "I know you must think all of this is very strange. I'm confused, to be honest. Tell me what you know." Brenda took a deep breath before beginning. "I worked at St. Jude's nursing home for almost 10 years. It's a place for middle-class elderly people, well organized. Vera, or Vanessa as she calls herself now, worked there for 2 years." "Doing what?" "She was a nursing assistant, taking care of the patients. At first she seemed like a good employee. The elderly liked her, she was affectionate, attentive." Arthur listened in silence, trying to picture the elegant woman he knew working in a nursing home. But things started to get strange. Some patients, especially those who didn't receive visitors, began to develop a very strong bond with her. And then we found out why. What happened? She would convince lonely elderly residents to change their wills, leaving part of their inheritance to her. She said she was like a daughter to them, that she would take better care of the money than distant relatives. Arthur felt his stomach turn. The Vanessa he knew always showed no interest in money. never asked for expensive gifts or made demands. Do you have proof of that? 3 families discovered the changes to the wills after their elderly relatives passed away. All of them had Monica as a beneficiary. The nursing home administration investigated, and she was fired immediately. And you're sure it's the same person? Brenda grabbed her phone and showed a photo. This picture was taken at the nursing home's holiday party 2 months before she was fired. Arthur looked at the image, and his blood ran cold. It was unmistakably Vanessa, just with shorter hair and without the elegance he knew. She was hugging an elderly woman, smiling at the camera. That woman in the photo is Mrs. Margaret. She was one of the victims. She changed her will 3 weeks before passing away, leaving half of her assets to Monica. And the family? They contested the will in court. Since Vera had disappeared after being fired, they couldn't find her to resolve the matter. Arthur felt as if the ground were disappearing beneath his feet. The woman he had fallen in love with, whom he had planned to propose to, was a completely different person than he had imagined. "There's one more thing," said Brenda, hesitating. "What?" "She has a daughter." The words hit Arthur like a punch to the stomach. Vanessa had always said she didn't want children, that she preferred to enjoy life with just him. "How do you know that?" "Because the girl also worked at the nursing home on weekends. She was a very sweet teenager, about 15 years old. Monica never admitted she was the mother, saying she was just an acquaintance who needed work." "Where is that girl now?" "I don't know. After Monica was fired, the girl disappeared too, but I remember she called Monica Mom when she thought no one was listening." Arthur ran his hands over his face, trying to process all that information. His entire life had been built on honesty and hard work. The idea of being deceived by someone he trusted completely was devastating. "Why did you decide to tell me this?" Brenda sighed. "Because I saw the way you looked at her yesterday. You were about to do something important, weren't you? A marriage proposal?" Arthur nodded, unable to speak. "I couldn't let a good man like you be deceived. I've seen many people suffer because of her. Do you think she still does those things?" "I don't know, but people like that rarely change, especially when they find a valuable target." The word target echoed in Arthur's mind. Was that all he was to Vanessa? Just another victim in her schemes? Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to hit like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Arthur thanked Brenda and returned to the office in a state of shock. He tried to work, but he couldn't concentrate. All his memories with Vanessa played through his head like a movie, and now he saw details that had once seemed innocent in a new light. The way she always avoided talking about the past, how she knew details about medical care that she attributed to health research she did. The way she comforted him when he talked about loneliness, as if she knew exactly what to say. His phone rang. It was a message from Vanessa. "Missing you, love. How about we have dinner at home tonight? I'll cook that dish you like." For the first time since they'd met, Arthur didn't respond immediately. He stared at the message, trying to decide what to do. Confront her directly? Investigate further? End everything without explanations? He decided he needed more information before making any decision. He called his personal attorney, Dr. Thomas Harrison, a trusted man who had handled his affairs for over a decade. "Arthur, how are you? It's been a while since we talked." "Thomas, I need a favor. Do you know any discreet private detective?" "Of course, I work with a few. Did something happen?" "It's complicated. I need to investigate someone." "I understand. I'll give you Jack Donnelly's contact. He's very competent and discreet." Arthur wrote down the number and called immediately. Jack was available for a meeting that very afternoon. The detective was a man of about 50, with a discreet appearance and professional manners. They met at a cafe near Arthur's office. "Dr. Thomas told me you need an investigation," Jack said, getting straight to the point. "It's about my girlfriend. I found out she may have lied about everything." Arthur told him everything Brenda had revealed, showing him the photo she had taken from her cell phone. Jack listened carefully, taking some notes. Would her real name be Monica Miller? According to the waitress, yes. And she said she worked at St. Jude's nursing home? Exactly. I'll start there. How much time do you have? As soon as possible. I was planning to propose to her. Jack nodded with understanding. I'll prioritize the case. I should have initial information in 2 or 3 days. Arthur went home with the feeling of living a nightmare. Vanessa had sent 2 more messages during the afternoon, asking if he was okay and confirming dinner. He finally replied saying he had a meeting that could run late, but he'd try to get home early. In truth, Arthur needed time to think. He drove aimlessly through the streets of New York City, reflecting on the last 8 months. It had been the happiest period of his life. Vanessa had brought lightness and love to his work routine, and he had begun to imagine a future together. Now everything seemed like an illusion. Every fond memory was tainted by doubt. Had any moment ever been real? Did she feel anything genuine for him, or was it all part of an elaborate scheme? By the time he arrived at Vanessa's apartment, it was almost 9 o'clock at night. She greeted him at the door wearing a simple yet elegant dress, with a kitchen apron tied around her waist. "I thought you weren't coming anymore," she said, kissing him on the cheek. "I was starting to get worried." "Sorry, love. The meeting ran long." The apartment was filled with the aroma of the prime rib roast she had prepared, one of Arthur's favorite dishes. The table was set with candles and fresh flowers. "You did all this for me?" he asked, genuinely touched by the care. "Of course, love. You deserve to be taken care of." During dinner, Arthur watched Vanessa with heightened attention. She was especially affectionate and attentive, asking about his day, massaging his shoulders when he complained about tension. "You seem off today," she remarked as they served dessert. "Did something happen at work?" "I'm just tired. Too many projects in the works." "Poor thing. How about a massage after dinner?" The offer was tempting, but Arthur felt that every caress now could be calculated. How could he tell the difference between genuine affection and manipulation? "Vanessa, can I ask you something?" "Of course, love. Anything." "Have you ever thought about working, doing something productive?" She laughed softly, playing with the ring Arthur had given her. "Why would I? I have you to take care of me now. And before that, I had my parents' inheritance. But what about before we met? Were you alone all the time?" "I had a few friends, traveled now and then. Nothing too exciting." The answers remained vague, and Arthur noticed how she always dodged specific details about her past. "And family? You never mentioned cousins, uncles?" "My parents were only children just like me. I don't have any close relatives." "That must be lonely." "It was, until I met you." She leaned in to kiss him, but Arthur subtly pulled away. "I think I'm coming down with something. I don't want to get you sick." Vanessa studied him for a moment, and Arthur had the impression she was calculating something in her mind. "All right, love. How about we watch a movie?" They settled onto the couch, but Arthur barely paid attention to the television. His mind was focused on every gesture of Vanessa's, searching for signs of falseness or manipulation. Midway through the movie, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen and quickly rejected the call. "Who was that?" "Wrong number," she replied, but Arthur noticed a momentary tension in her voice. The phone rang again a few minutes later. This time, Vanessa got up and went into the bedroom to answer. "I already told you I can't talk right now," Arthur heard her say in a low voice. "I'll call you later." When she returned to the living room, she seemed slightly agitated. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, just a friend with some problems. Nothing important." But Arthur saw her turn the phone off completely, something she never did when they were together. The rest of the night passed slowly. Arthur made up an excuse to leave early, claiming he had an early meeting the next day. Vanessa insisted he stay, but he held his ground. "Are you sure you're okay?" she asked at the door. "You seem different tonight." "Just tired, that's all. We'll be better tomorrow." She kissed his forehead, and for a moment, Arthur almost forgot all his doubts. But when he looked into her eyes, he saw something he couldn't quite identify. Worry, fear, guilt. At home, Arthur stayed up late, reflecting on everything he had discovered. Part of him still hoped there was an innocent explanation for it all, that Carmen was mistaken, that there was a case of mistaken identity. But deep down, he knew that was just wishful thinking. There were too many details that fit perfectly. The vagueness about her past, her knowledge of medical care, the way she handled elderly people. The next morning, Arthur woke up to a message from Jack, the detective. "Preliminary information is ready. Can we meet?" They met at the same cafe as the day before. Jack was holding a folder and had a serious expression on his face. "Mr. Sterling, I've confirmed her identity. Your girlfriend is indeed Monica Miller, 35 years old, originally from Albany. And what else did you find out? She did work at St. Jude's nursing home. She was fired 2 years ago on suspicion of manipulating the elderly. But that wasn't the only place where it happened." Arthur felt his heart race. "What do you mean?" "She worked at least 3 different nursing homes over the past 10 years, always with the same pattern. She started out well, gained the elderly residents' trust, and then suspicions of financial manipulation arose." "And the daughter?" "She exists. Her name is Lily Miller, 16 years old. She lives with her paternal grandmother in Albany." "And the girl's father?" "Kevin Miller, Monica's ex-husband. He works as a mechanic. According to my source, Monica left him when their daughter was 10 years old." Arthur ran his hands over his face, feeling the weight of the whole revelation. "There's more," Jack continued. "Monica officially changed her name 3 years ago, from Monica Miller to Vanessa Kensington, and there's no record of a family inheritance, as she claims. So how has she been maintaining that lifestyle? From what I was able to find out, she received some sums of money from beneficiaries of altered wills, and in recent years she seems to have been living off relationships." "Other relationships?" "At least 2 that I managed to identify. A businessman from Chicago and a retired doctor from Miami. Both ended the relationships abruptly, but they didn't want to give details." Arthur felt as if he had been plunged into ice-cold water. Everything he believed about his life with Vanessa was an elaborate lie. "Mr. Sterling, may I suggest something?" "Of course. Don't confront her yet. I'll keep investigating to get the full picture. If she realizes you know, she might disappear like she did the other times." "And how much time do you need?" "A few more days. I want to confirm the details about the wills and try to contact the ex-boyfriends." Arthur agreed, but he knew it would be hard to keep pretending everything was normal with Vanessa. Every kiss, every caress, every sweet word now sounded like a calculated performance. For the rest of the week, he tried to keep his normal routine, but he was visibly different. Vanessa commented several times on his distractedness and coldness, but he always came up with work-related excuses. On Friday, Jack called with more information. "I managed to talk to the businessman from Chicago. He confirmed the same pattern. Monica presented herself with a fake identity, claimed to come from a wealthy family, and after a year of dating, he discovered she was secretly assessing his assets and properties." "How did he find out?" "She was seen talking to a real estate appraiser near his house. When confronted, she admitted part of the truth but kept lying about important details." "And the doctor from Miami?" "An even more serious case. She got access to his medications and was administering sedatives in small doses, leaving him confused and dependent on her. A family friend who was a nurse noticed and alerted his children." Arthur felt a wave of nausea. Could it be possible that Vanessa was doing something similar to him? He had been feeling strangely tired over the past few months, but he had chalked it up to work stress. "Mr. Sterling, I need to ask you, have you been feeling physically different since you've been with her?" The question hit Arthur like a thunderbolt. He had indeed experienced periods of excessive drowsiness and memory lapses, especially after the romantic dinners Vanessa prepared. "Oh my God, do you think she—" "It's a possibility. I recommend you get some discreet medical tests done." Arthur scheduled an appointment with his personal physician for the next day, making up an excuse about a routine checkup for Vanessa. The blood tests revealed traces of medications Arthur didn't take. His doctor, Dr. David Evans, was concerned. "Arthur, these compounds are used in medications for anxiety and insomnia. Have you been taking anything different?" "No, doctor. I don't take any medication." "That's very strange. The amounts are small, but enough to cause drowsiness and mild mental confusion. How could that have ended up in my system?" "Through food or drink. Arthur, Do you trust the people around you? The doctor's question was like a dagger thrust. Arthur told him everything about the investigation he was conducting on Vanessa. My friend, you're in real danger. You need to distance yourself from that woman immediately and consider filing a police report. Arthur left the office in total shock. Vanessa wasn't just lying about her past, she was actively harming his health. That afternoon, Jack called with the last piece of the puzzle. Mr. Sterling, I managed to locate her daughter, Lily. The girl agreed to meet with you. With me, why? She said she's wanted to confront her mother about the abandonment for a long time, and when she found out that Monica was in another serious relationship, she wanted to warn you about who she really is. Arthur arranged to meet Lily the next day at a coffee shop near the school where she studied in Albany. The 2-hour drive gave him time to process everything he had discovered. Lily was a thin teenager, with brown hair like her mother's, but with an expression more mature than expected for her age. She was accompanied by her grandmother, Mrs. Martha Miller, a 70-year-old woman who had raised her since Monica had left. Mr. Sterling? Lily stood up as he approached the table. Lily, thank you for agreeing to talk to me. The girl had the same eyes as Vanessa, but in them Arthur saw a sincerity he had never found in her mother's gaze. When the detective reached out, I knew I had to talk to you, said Lily. My mother has already fooled a lot of people, and I can't let this continue. Mrs. Martha Miller, who had remained silent, finally spoke. My son Kevin suffered a lot because of Monica. She destroyed our family and abandoned this girl as if she were trash. Grandma. Lily touched the old woman's arm, asking for calm. Tell me what happened, said Arthur. Lily sighed before beginning. My mother was always different. Since I was little, I noticed she lied a lot, even about small things. My father tried to protect her, but I could see how she manipulated people. And when did she leave? I was 10. She said she was going to work in New York City for a few months to save up money and come back. She never came back. Not even to visit. Never. In the first few years she sent some money, very little. Then she stopped completely. Mrs. Martha Miller interjected, That woman is a viper. My son nearly fell into depression when she left, and this girl cried every night asking when her mother would come back. Arthur felt his heart breaking as he listened to the account. How could a mother abandon a child like that? Lily, do you know what your mother did at her jobs? I do. Grandma Martha has a friend who worked at one of the nursing homes. She told me my mother used to convince the elderly residents to change their wills. And you, how have you been living? Grandma does some sewing work on the side to support us. I work on weekends at a diner to help out. It's not easy, but at least we have our dignity. The word dignity echoed in Arthur's mind. Here was a teenager who, despite all the hardships, had grown up with values her own mother didn't possess. Mr. Arthur, said Lily, looking directly into his eyes, I know you must care a lot about my mother. She knows how to be very convincing when she wants to be. But she doesn't love anyone but herself. How can you be so sure? Because a mother who loves doesn't abandon her child. And if she could do that to me, her own daughter, imagine what she could do to you. The girl's words carried a wisdom that only suffering can teach. Arthur felt a mixture of anger and sadness. Anger at having been deceived. Sadness for that child having grown up without a mother. Lily, can I ask you a personal question? Sure. Would you like to see your mother again? The girl thought for a long moment before answering. I used to dream about it a lot, but now I know the woman she's become isn't the mother I needed. I've made my peace with that. And what if she wanted to make amends, apologize? I think it would be too late. She had 6 years to do that. Mrs. Martha Miller placed her hand on her granddaughter's shoulder with pride. This girl is more of a woman than her mother ever was. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. Arthur returned to New York City with a heavy heart, but with absolute certainty about what he needed to do. Not just end the relationship with Vanessa, but confront her about all the lies and manipulations. He decided the confrontation would happen that very weekend. He made a dinner reservation at her apartment, pretending he wanted a special romantic evening. Vanessa was radiant with the invitation. "How wonderful, love. I've been missing our intimate dinners. I'll make something special." "Actually, let me handle the food tonight. I want to cook something for you." "Really? How sweet. You know I love it when you cook." Arthur bought the ingredients for dinner, but also took care to package everything individually to make sure Vanessa wouldn't have access to the food before it was prepared. On Saturday night, he arrived at her apartment with 2 grocery bags. "Wow, so much food," Vanessa commented. "What are you going to make?" "A surprise. Stay in the living room and let me take care of everything." For the first time in weeks, Arthur felt in control of the situation. He prepared the dinner carefully, not letting Vanessa near the kitchen. When she tried to help, he insisted she relax and enjoy herself. During dinner, Arthur watched Vanessa eat normally without any hesitation. It was obvious she only tampered with the food she prepared for him. "It's delicious, love," she said. "You should cook more often." "Vanessa, I need to talk to you about something important." "Of course, love. What is it?" Arthur took a deep breath before beginning. "Last week, when we had dinner at the restaurant, something happened that left me very confused." "What? I didn't notice anything different." "The waitress told me she knew you." Vanessa froze with her fork in midair for a fraction of a second, but quickly composed herself. "A waitress? I don't remember knowing any waitress." "She said you two worked together at a nursing home." "Nursing home?" Vanessa let out a forced laugh. "Darling, I think she confused you with someone else. I've never worked at a nursing home." "Are you sure?" She seemed very certain. "Absolutely. You know I've never worked a day in my life. I've always lived off my parents' inheritance." Arthur observed her face carefully. There was no sign of nervousness or guilt. Vanessa lied with the same naturalness with which she breathed. "It's fine. It must have been a mistake then." "Of course it was, darling. These people sometimes make up stories to get attention." Arthur changed the subject and finished dinner normally. But now he was absolutely certain that everything Brenda and Jack had discovered was true. After dinner, when they were on the sofa, Arthur decided to take the test further. "Vanessa, you've never really told me about your family. What were your parents like?" "I've already told you, darling. They were farmers in Virginia. Simple people, but prosperous." "And how did they pass away?" "Car accident. I was 25. It must have been very hard." "It was terrible. They were everything to me." "And didn't you have siblings to comfort you?" "No, I was an only child." "My parents were only children too." Arthur continued asking questions about the supposed family, and Vanessa answered them all with elaborate details. She had created a completely fictitious biography with invented names, dates, and events. "And you never thought about having children?" Arthur asked, watching her reaction closely. "Never. I guess I don't have a maternal instinct. I'd rather take care of you." The lie about not having children hurt Arthur the most. Knowing that Lily existed, that she suffered from her mother's absence, while Vanessa pretended she had never even thought about motherhood. "Are you sure you never had the urge?" "I'm sure, darling. Children are too big a responsibility. I prefer our freedom." Freedom. The word sounded ironic, coming from someone who had abandoned a child to pursue her own interests. Arthur decided he had heard enough lies for a lifetime. "Vanessa, I know who you really are." She looked at him, confused. "What do you mean, darling?" "Your real name is Monica Miller. You're 35 years old, you're from Albany, and you have a 16-year-old daughter named Lily." Vanessa's face lost all its color. For a few seconds she stood completely still, as if processing what she had heard. "Arthur, I don't understand what you're saying. You worked at 3 different nursing homes. You were fired from the last one for manipulating elderly people's wills. You legally changed your name 3 years ago, and you've been drugging me with medication for the past few months." Now Vanessa was visibly shaken. Her hands were trembling, and she seemed to be calculating her options. "Who told you these things? Does it matter? Is it true or not?" "Arthur, I can explain." "So it's true." Vanessa got up from the sofa and began pacing around the living room. "It's not exactly like that. Things are more complicated than they seem." "Then explain it to me. Start with the abandonment of your daughter." Lily was better off with her grandmother. I wasn't in a position to raise her. But you were in a position to live a life of luxury at the expense of deceived men? You don't understand, Vanessa exploded. I came from a poor family with no prospects. My ex-husband was an alcoholic. I needed to find a way to survive. Survive? Or take advantage? Both. Yes, I lied about my past, but my feelings for you are real. What feelings? You were drugging me. Vanessa stopped pacing and stared at him. It was just to help you relax. You were always stressed out with work. Without my consent, you were slowly poisoning me. It wasn't poison. They were just mild sedatives. The casual way she talked about drugging someone without consent showed Arthur Vanessa's true character. There was no genuine remorse, only justifications. And the elderly at the nursing homes? Were you helping them too? They were lonely people with no family who cared about them. I took care of them better than any distant relative ever would. So it was a matter of charity, Arthur said with irony. It was a win-win situation. They had company and care, and I had a way to survive. And when they died, you kept their inheritance. Just part of it. And I deserved it, for the care I gave. Arthur realized that Vanessa had created a narrative in her own mind where she was always the victim or the heroine, never the villain. And what about Lily? Was she also better off without you? She has her grandmother, she has her father. She didn't need me. Every child needs their mother. Not every woman was born to be a mother, Vanessa shouted. I tried, but it didn't work. It was better for everyone if I got out of her life. It was better for you, you mean? Yes, it was better for me. And what's wrong with that? I have the right to pursue my happiness. The mask had finally fallen completely. The elegant, caring Vanessa that Arthur knew had given way to a bitter, selfish woman, capable of justifying any action in the name of her own benefit. Arthur, she moved closer to him, trying to regain her seductive tone. Everything I did was so I could be with you, to be the woman you deserve. The woman I deserve wouldn't lie about everything, wouldn't drug my food, wouldn't abandon a child. I can change. I can be different. Monica, you can't change because you don't see anything wrong with what you did. Don't call me by that name, she shouted again. Monica is dead. Now I'm Vanessa. Monica isn't dead. You just hid her underneath lies and manipulation, but she's still there in every selfish choice you make. Vanessa sat down heavily on the couch, finally seeming to understand that her mask had been completely stripped away. What are you going to do now? She asked, her voice low. I'm going to end our relationship, and I'm going to suggest you seek professional help. And the police, are you going to report me? Arthur thought for a moment. He could report her for food tampering, maybe even attempted poisoning, but that would mean a long, painful legal process. No, if you promise me a few things. What? First, that you'll go find your daughter and try to repair the damage you've caused. Arthur. Second, that you'll stop with these schemes. No more taking advantage of vulnerable people. And what if I can't change? Then the next person you try to deceive might not be as merciful as I am. Vanessa nodded, looking defeated. Did you ever really believe you loved me? Arthur asked. She took a moment to answer. I believed I could learn to love you. You're a good man, generous. I thought that with time. But real love wasn't possible because you don't trust anyone. And you can't love someone you don't trust. Maybe you're right. Arthur stood up to leave. To Vanessa or Monica, or whatever name you choose to use. You still have time to change. But first you need to admit to yourself who you really are. And who am I? A frightened woman who learned to lie in order to survive. But a lie isn't a life. It's just a way of avoiding living. Arthur left the apartment without looking back. He knew he would probably never see Vanessa again. And that was a relief. In the following days, he had a full medical workup to make sure he hadn't suffered any permanent damage from the drugs. Fortunately, since the doses were small and over a limited period, his health was fine. Jack, the detective, kept him informed about Vanessa's whereabouts. She had left the apartment a few days after the confrontation and disappeared again. "I believe she's gone to another city to start over," Jack said. "And Lily?" "As far as I know, Monica hasn't contacted her daughter." Arthur felt sad for Lily, but he knew he couldn't force a reconciliation between mother and daughter. A few weeks later, he made a decision. He called Lily. "Hello, Lily. This is Arthur." "Hi, Mr. Arthur. How are you?" "I'm well, thank you. I'd like to know if you and your grandmother would accept an invitation to lunch in New York City." "Really? Why?" "Because I met a brave and intelligent young woman, and I'd like to help her with her studies. Mr. Arthur, we don't need charity." "It's not charity, Lily. It's an investment in someone who deserves a chance." They accepted the invitation. Arthur took them to a nice restaurant, but not too formal so they would feel comfortable. "Lily, I'd like to pay for your college education when the time comes." "Mr. Arthur, let me explain. Your mother caused me a lot of emotional harm, but she also taught me valuable lessons about trust and honesty. You represent everything she could have been if she had made different choices." Mrs. Martha Miller began to cry. "You're a very good man, and you're a very special family." Lily grew up with solid values despite all the difficulties. Lily accepted the help, but on the condition that it would be a loan which she would repay when she finished college. "I accept your terms," said Arthur, smiling. In the following months, Arthur kept regular contact with Lily and Mrs. Martha Miller. He discovered that the girl wanted to study psychology to help children going through difficult family situations. "I want to understand why some people make the choices they make," she said during one of their phone conversations, "and I want to help other children not blame themselves for their parents' mistakes." Arthur was impressed by Lily's maturity and wisdom. She had turned her pain into purpose. 6 months after the confrontation with Vanessa, Arthur received an unexpected call. "Arthur, it's Brenda from the restaurant." "Brenda, how are you?" "I'm well, thank you. I'm calling because Vanessa showed up here today." Arthur felt his stomach tighten. "What did she want?" "She was looking for you. She said she needed to talk, that she had changed." "And what did you say?" "That I didn't know where to find you. But she was different, Arthur. She seemed broken." "Different how?" "Thinner, less put together. And she was crying. She said she had tried to start over in other cities, but she couldn't forget you." Arthur fell silent, processing the information. "Did she leave a message?" "She said if you wanted to talk to her, she would be staying at the Grand Plaza Hotel for a few days." "Thank you for letting me know, Brenda." "Arthur, be careful. People like that sometimes fake change to get what they want." Arthur spent the rest of the day thinking about whether he should meet Vanessa or not. Part of him was curious about what she had to say. Another part feared it was just more manipulation. He decided he would meet her, but in a public place and with protection. He called Jack, the detective. "Jack, I need a favor. Can you be present, but discreet, at a meeting I'm going to have?" "Of course. With whom?" "Vanessa is back in town." "Arthur, are you sure this is a good idea?" "I'm not sure about anything, but I need to hear what she has to say." They arranged to meet in the lobby of the Grand Plaza Hotel. Arthur arrived first and chose a table near the front desk where there was constant movement. Jack was sitting on the other side of the lobby, pretending to read a newspaper. Vanessa showed up right on time. Brenda was right. She looked very different. She had lost weight, her hair wasn't as well kept as usual, and her clothes, though still elegant, looked worn. "Arthur," she said, sitting down across from him. "Thank you for coming." "What do you want, Vanessa?" "First, I want to apologize for everything. Go on." "After you confronted me, I tried to go back to how things were. I went to Washington, D.C., met a man, and you tried to deceive him too." "Yes," she admitted, "but I couldn't. Every time I looked at him, I saw you. Every time I was about to lie, I remembered your words." Arthur watched her carefully. There seemed to be a sincerity in her voice he had never heard before. "And then, I ended things with him before they even began. I told him the truth about my past. Why? Because I realized you were right. I was avoiding actually living. They were silent for a few moments. Vanessa, you can't expect me to believe in such a sudden change. I know. I'm not asking you to forgive me or take me back. Then what are you asking for? A chance to do the right thing for the first time in my life. What right thing? I want to see my daughter. Arthur felt a mix of surprise and skepticism. Why? After 6 years? Because you made me realize that abandoning her was the worst thing I've ever done, worse than any lie I ever told. And what do you plan to do? I don't know. Maybe she won't even want to see me, but I have to try. I have to at least apologize. Arthur studied Vanessa's face. There was something different in her eyes, a vulnerability he had never seen before. Vanessa, if you're doing this to impress me, I'm not. In fact, I'm going to do this even if you never want to see me again. Why? Because I've spent the last few months having nightmares about Lily. I dream that she's alone, that she needs me, and I'm not there. She's not alone. She has her grandmother and her father. I know, but she doesn't have her mother, and that's my fault. Arthur saw genuine tears in Vanessa's eyes for the first time. Do you have any idea how much she's suffered? Not completely, but I want to know. I want to understand what I did. Arthur made a decision that surprised even himself. I can help you find her. Really? But with conditions. First, you'll undergo psychological counseling. Second, any meeting with Lily will be on her terms, not yours. I accept. And third, if she doesn't want to see you, you'll respect that and won't push. I accept that too. Arthur called Lily that same night. Lily, your mother got in touch with me. She wants to see you. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Did she say why? To apologize. And do you believe her? I don't know, but I think you deserve the chance to hear what she has to say, if you want to. Grandma and Dad are going to be furious. They don't need to know for now. Think about it, and let me know what you decide. 2 days later, Lily called back. Mr. Arthur, I want to see her, but I want you to be there. Are you sure? Yes. You're the only person who knows both of us for who we really are. The meeting was set for the following weekend at a public square in Albany. Arthur arrived first with Vanessa, who was visibly nervous. What if she hates me? Vanessa asked. Maybe she will. You're going to have to accept that. How am I supposed to explain 6 years of absence? With the truth. It's all you can do now. Lily arrived a few minutes later, accompanied by her father, Kevin. Arthur had spoken to him on the phone and explained the situation. The first meeting between mother and daughter in 6 years was awkward and painful. Lily was clearly nervous, but she maintained a dignified posture. Vanessa seemed to be fighting back tears. Hi, Lily, Vanessa said, her voice trembling. Hi. Mom. The word Mom came out hesitantly from Lily's mouth, as if she were testing how it sounded after so long. You've grown so much, Vanessa remarked. You're a beautiful young woman. Thank you. They sat down on a bench in the square. Kevin and Arthur kept a respectful distance, but close enough to intervene if necessary. Lily, I came to apologize. Why? Because I left or because it took me 6 years to apologize? The question was direct and painful. Vanessa took a moment to answer. For everything. For abandoning you. For lying about the reasons. For pretending you didn't exist. So you really did pretend? I pretended even to myself. It was easier than admitting I was a terrible mother. You really were terrible. But at least now you're being honest about it. Lily had the same emotional intelligence Arthur had noticed before. She wasn't making things easy for Vanessa, but she also wasn't being cruel. Can I ask you something? Said Lily. Of course. Do you regret having me? The question hit Vanessa like a punch. She started crying before she could answer. No, I regret being too cowardly to be the mother you deserved. And now? What do you want from me? Nothing. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. and that none of it was your fault. I never thought it was my fault. Grandma and Dad always told me the problem was yours, not mine. They were right. They talked for another hour. It wasn't a dramatic reconciliation, but it was a beginning of honesty between them. In the end, Lily said, "Mum, I don't know if I can forgive you right now, but I can try to get to know you again. That's all I can ask for." In the following months, Vanessa began visiting Lily regularly, initially always accompanied by Arthur, then on her own. The visits were tense at first, but gradually became more natural. Vanessa also started paying child support to Lily, using her savings to help with her daughter's studies. It wasn't much, but it was an important symbolic gesture. Arthur watched everything from a distance, impressed by Vanessa's gradual transformation. She seemed to be genuinely trying to change, not to impress anyone, but out of her own need. A year after the first meeting between mother and daughter, Arthur received a phone call from Lily. "Mr. Arthur, I wanted to invite you to my high school graduation. It would be an honor to be there. And my mom is going to be there too. How are things between you two?" "Better. It's still hard, but she's really trying. And I'm learning to trust her again." "That's wonderful, Lily. Mr. Arthur, I want to thank you for making this possible. You and your mother did the hard work. I just helped bring you together." At Lily's graduation, Arthur saw Vanessa cry with pride when her daughter received her diploma. It was the first time she had been present at an important moment in Lily's life since abandoning her. After the ceremony, Vanessa approached Arthur. "Thank you," she said simply. "For what?" "For forcing me to face who I really was, for giving me the chance to try to be better." "You did that on your own, Vanessa." "No, I didn't. You showed me there was another way to live, with honesty." Arthur smiled. "And how are you feeling now?" "Scared," she admitted. "Being honest is much harder than lying, but it's also more real." "And is it worth it?" "I don't know yet. Ask me in a few years." Arthur never had a romantic relationship with Vanessa again, but they maintained a respectful friendship based on truth and a mutual interest in Lily's well-being. Lily earned a degree in psychology with a specialization in family therapy. She said she wanted to help other families rebuild themselves after trauma, as she and her mother had done. Vanessa never got involved in manipulation schemes again. She found work as a private caregiver for the elderly, this time in an honest and ethical way. She said she liked being able to care for people without ulterior motives. 5 years after the first confrontation at the restaurant, Arthur ran into Brenda by chance on the street. "Brenda, how are you?" "Very well, thank you." "And you?" "I'm fine too. Married, actually." "How wonderful. To whom?" "A doctor I met at a charity event. A woman of integrity and affection." "I'm so happy for you. And Vanessa?" "She's doing well. She rebuilt her relationship with her daughter and found an honest way to live. I'm glad everything worked out well." "Brenda, I want to thank you once again. If you hadn't had the courage to tell me the truth, you would have found out anyway. Good men always recognize deceit in the end." Arthur smiled. "Maybe. But you spared me a lot of suffering." It was a pleasure to help. When Arthur got home that night, he found his wife, Dr. Catherine, reading on the couch. "How was your day, love?" she asked. "I met a very special person, someone who changed my life a few years ago." Arthur told her about the encounter with Brenda, and then the whole story with Vanessa. Catherine knew the details, but she liked hearing Arthur reflect on that experience. "Have you ever regretted giving her a second chance?" Catherine asked. "Never. She deserved the opportunity to change. And Lily deserved to have a mother. Even after everything she did to you? Catherine, I've learned that holding a grudge only hurts the one who holds it. Vanessa had to learn to live with the consequences of her choices. I didn't need to carry that responsibility. You are a very wise man, Arthur Sterling. Or very naive," he laughed. "Sometimes I still can't tell the difference." The end. So, what did you think of this moving story? Did Vanessa really change, or was there still some manipulation in her transformation? Leave your opinion in the comments and tell us where you're watching from. Subscribe to the channel and don't forget to like.